welcome. We're glad you're here, and we will be talking about how to increase the learning curve, as we allow the government to flatten the COVID curve. So, before I bring my special guest out, I wanted to talk again about that daily expectation and what I provide in my home, and maybe that can help you have wisdom to add to your day. So in the morning, when my children wake up, I have them do their daily things like brush your teeth, wash your face, eat breakfast, right? And then they know that they will read the proverb and psalm for the day. So they look at the calendar and they see what date it is. And because of each day can be in the Proverbs in the Bible, they'll read the proverb of the date. And so today they read Proverbs 21 and Psalm 21, right? And so that's the way that I do that. Now, in order to transition them into learning a little bit more deeply, I use crossword puzzles, and I talked about the benefits of crossword puzzles before, allowing students to do certain things with the crossword puzzles. So I have the crossword puzzles that I use, and one of them is a Bible word search. So typically my son, and you can see it has some highlighting in there, will follow up with that, or you can even get something that they're interested in. And as you can see, these are $1, right? Doesn't require you to plug in or connect anything. They're mobile and everything else. But I don't know if you guys are aware that crossword puzzles add 5 core values that we want our kids to have, right? In the ability to do them. So it improves vocabulary and spelling, develops problem-solving abilities, teaches persistence, right? Because they can't just give up. It does improve IQ and EQ, and it enhances productivity. And if you want to know more information so that you can fact check this, you can definitely reach out to me at Christina@npunion.org. I can help you to understand the value of those 5 core values that children can receive from just doing crossword puzzles. And like I said, it transitions my kids into their academia portion of the day. And I also allow them to use highlighters when they're doing their crossword puzzles, so that those words that they use the one color will stand out to them and they'll stick to their subconscious memories. So that is just a tip on how I transition my children into their day with learning, and also work on those 5 core values. And like I said, you don't have to plug a crossword puzzle in. You don't have to worry about if, it's lagging on the access portion of the internet. You could just have your child sit down with a highlighter and a crossword puzzle, and they can transition into their day. Today, we have a special guest, Megan Potente, and she is an educator, outreach manager in San Francisco. I gotta get my words right today. Sorry, you guys. And San Francisco regional leader for Decoding Dyslexia. She is a parent of a child with dyslexia and also has 20 years of experience working in elementary education, including roles as a classroom and special education teacher, reading specialist, and literacy coach. I'm going to get my words right today. I promise you that. Megan holds a Master's of Education in Teaching and Learning, a certificate in Educational Therapy, a California multiple subject credential, and an administrative services credential. She currently works as a dyslexia advocate and a structured literacy coach. Hi, Megan.
Hi, it's so great to be here today. Thank you for having me, Christina.
Thank you for coming. And so if you could tell everyone that is watching who you are and what you do, that would be great.
Yeah, okay, I'm sorry. My internet is getting a little funky, but we're just going to keep trying.
Yes.
Yeah, all right, okay. So, I'll start off with my story as a parent of a child with dyslexia. The thing is about dyslexia, one parent talks to another parent, And the stories are really similar. So what happened to us was that, you know, I knew from the very beginning when my son was in preschool that there were red flags, right? I mean, he couldn't rhyme. He could not identify his name. He had a terrible time learning letters. You know, and then we moved into kindergarten, and his dear kindergarten teacher, who wanted nothing but for him to be successful, really struggled with him just learning his letters, learning sounds. It was very evident that something was different about him, but he was extremely bright. He was like the leader on the playground, had strengths in a multitude of other areas, and it was really the reading and anything having to do with print was a huge challenge for him. So because I'm an educator and I actually have experience related to dyslexia before he entered school, I kind of knew what to do here. But for most parents, it's like, what's going on here? And they go to the school and ask for help, and the school oftentimes, you know, they don't know. So it's a real challenge. So my son was identified through the public school system assessment evaluation process in second grade. And so he did get that IEP, and in the IEP, they call it specific learning disability, but it's most definitely dyslexia. And he was getting some special services, and the school was trying hard to meet his needs. But the truth is that he was not learning. He really was not. And so, and I was very dedicated to that public school. I'm a public school educator. I wanted it to work for him, but it was not working. And we were fortunate enough that we switched to a private school that specializes in meeting the needs of kids with dyslexia. And he's closed the gap.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, I mean, because he had access to appropriate instruction. I mean, what they're doing at that school can be done in our public schools, most definitely. So the instruction that they use is, it's called structured literacy, and it is intensive phonemic awareness and phonics incorporated in the reading instruction, and it's every day. And that is proven to work with kids with dyslexia. But fighting for that in our public schools is a real battle, and it's been going on.
Oh, yes. I understand that fighting for a lot of stuff is really challenging. You know, like those services and supports are such a high commodity. It's like, you know, hard for parents to, first of all, know exactly what their child is needing in the area of services and supports, and then to battle for them. And so by the time you actually understand, well, this is what my child needs, it's been years that you've battled for something, right?
And, you know, this is really what we're fighting about, because the thing about dyslexia is there's something called the dyslexia paradox. So what we mean by that is most kids with dyslexia are not identified until like they're 8 or 9 years old.
Wow.
But the window of the most optimal time to meet their needs, to close that gap, to get them the foundational skills that they are lacking, is in the early years of school. So the deficit with dyslexia has nothing to do with intelligence, has nothing to do. It's really about their how they process language.
Right.
So kids with dyslexia have a hard time distinguishing sounds in words. Hi, I'm back.
Hi again.
All right, well, anyway, we were talking about early identification, right? So
right.
We can reliably identify kids showing signs of dyslexia when they enter school, right? Mm-hmm. When they are in kindergarten, we can look at their, there's reliable measures that are quite easy. Family history, the ability to recall sounds, letters, segment sounds. These are all easy measures. Oh my goodness. It only takes a few minutes, and some districts across the country are doing this. Some
So
states.
that's good to know.
Yes, and some states now have laws that require you to do this.
That's
So
great.
if we screen all kindergartners and provide the instruction that they need early, we will have reduced children entering special education. So
And you know, I have a question about your son, right? Because I worked for special education as well for about 7 years. And what I realized was working even with the middle and high school students was that earlier intervention, because I worked at an all special education school, right, could have prevented them from coming onto that school campus and being in that school environment where they were not even diploma bound, okay? And I was thinking to myself, like, they should be diploma bound, like they shouldn't be here on this school campus. And so it was very frustrating. But at the same time, I wonder, you know, by the time you're in second grade and you're really not getting the services and supports that you need, how much of that affects you mentally, emotionally? Like, how frustrating is that, you know?
Can you imagine, you know, you're that 7-year-old, every child wants to learn. Every child wants to be successful.
Right.
Sit there day after day and experience failure as a 7-year-old at your first job, right? Learning to read is
Right.
first job. And, you know, having kids have experienced failure on a daily basis when we could be providing them what they need is terrible.
Yeah, that's egregious, if you ask me.
Right. There's just no reason to wait for kids to fail to provide them systematic and explicit instruction in how words work, in the sounds of words. That's really what we're talking about here. Kids with dyslexia have a deficit in processing language, which means that they need explicit, systematic instruction. And most schools do not provide that in kindergarten, first and second grade. We're talking about early reading instruction. I mean, I don't know about most. Many schools, some schools do.
No, that's typically what happens, you know, and just to triangulate my own experience it took me 3 years of fighting to get my grandson his cognitive auditory processing deficit assessment and services. And that is so frustrating for a person that has autism, that has a seizure condition, that has ADHD. And now, you know, you're waiting 3 years to really work on how he internalizes and hears his cognitive auditory processing deficit, you know. And so I would say that from what I've also heard from most parents is the same experience, that my kids in third grade are even some in middle school and they haven't even received what they needed, whether it was Barton, you know, small little things. And so, you know, I appreciate the value in what you do and what you're saying.
And I mean, really early intervention can change the trajectory of a student's life. I mean, I'm speaking as a parent, seeing this in my own home.
Right.
But also, I mean, we have the data to support that. We know that it's possible. Only, you know, a very small fraction of the most severely impaired individuals will not be able to read. Most individuals can read, and yet when you look at our literacy rates, it's abysmal. And I think early screening for dyslexia and appropriate systematic and explicit instruction in kindergarten, second grade makes a huge impact. And let's not forget about the social emotional impacts, right, that we were talking about. And then kids are act out. They're going to do anything they can to avoid what they can't do, which is read, right?
Right. And so that mental anguish has to spill over into the home, right? If it's time to sit down and do homework and you don't really understand how to do that, and your parents may not have like you knew that there were some red flags. That came from working in the field of special education for a period of time and understanding what you were seeing, right? And so like me and you, we're able to detect some things early and push. But some parents may not be recognizing what they're seeing. So I think that then it becomes the systematic responsibility of the children that are being served through public education for them to receive that early screening, kindergarten, right? And so what does that look like?
What does the screening look like?
Well, yes, like having that be more systemic.
So there are districts around the country and even states that require early screening now. It's really just, a 20-minute screening. And I know when you had Kareem Weaver on a few weeks ago, he talked about the free screeners that you can use online. So he encouraged parents to look them up. I know there's the Mississippi screener. You can even do it at home and take that data to the school and say, maybe you found that my child's reading at this level, but this information is more valuable when we're thinking about who is at risk. And also when we're talking about screening kids, we're not saying, we're going to identify all these children with dyslexia. Dyslexia happens on a continuum. It's not like, you either have it or you don't. But there are signs and it comes with increasing severity, right? Some people have a very severe case of it, and some people may just need a little bit more explicit instruction in learning to read. So, ideally, we find the kids who are at risk, and then they get the extra support with phonemic awareness and phonics. That really is what's lacking in kids with dyslexia. That's what they need.
Do you find that with regards to dyslexia and the screening and the services and supports that the students need, because we're talking about what's happening in public education, do you find that it's just a lack of resources or just a lack of ability to do this?
So among schools and among the system?
Yeah.
So I think you're probably aware of the historical nature of reading instruction in this country and really across the English-speaking world. And sadly, the reading wars have really just been a real problem in bringing people together to do the best that we can for kids. People will say, well, there's a pendulum, right? So we either teach phonics or we either teach we surround kids with literature. And that's not the right argument, right? There is a science about how people acquire literacy, about how they learn to read. It is very well established. And some popular methods continue this day because schools of education do not teach the science of reading. For example, in my teacher prep program, I didn't learn scientific evidence-based instruction. I learned more of whole language methods.
Yeah.
And dyslexia wasn't mentioned. So, and then, in most of my school, I was lucky to enroll in one program where I learned a great deal, but that is not common. So I think the real problem is that people don't understand how we learn to read, and they don't know about dyslexia. People who have a firm understanding of dyslexia easily can see that the methods that are really popular in schools do not meet kids' needs who have dyslexia. When we're telling kids,
so how can parents advocate for this, to change?
So I think knowledge is power, right? So, there's been a lot of great media coverage on this topic. So there are a lot of podcasts that have been instrumental in moving this conversation forward. So Emily Hanford is the reporter who's really done an amazing job of uncovering this topic and explaining to everyone what is wrong with popular methods of teaching kids to read and how they do not meet the needs of many kids and how they just are not based on the science. So her name is Emily Hanford, and she's a reporter with American Public Media. So those podcasts are incredible. And so just learning yourself, and many parents, especially with our organization, Decoding Dyslexia, find themselves as the teachers to other professionals. So Decoding Dyslexia is a grassroots, 100% grassroots organization in California. There are groups, every state has a chapter, and I even believe military families have a chapter. I mean, we continue to grow. 100% grassroots, parents who are standing up to say we need to do better for our kids with dyslexia.
Right. And so how can they locate you, you know, in order to gain more information about decoding dyslexia?
So we, of course, have Decoding Dyslexia California we have our own website. Every group has their own website with lots of resources there. And one of our roles is to push legislation forward that's going to support kids with dyslexia. So we were sponsors of the most recent legislation in California, which resulted in the dyslexia guidelines, and then also added phonological processing, which I mentioned, which is related to what is lacking for kids with dyslexia. That's where they have their main problems. So that is now required in educational evaluations.
Well, that's great. And that was all grassroots efforts from moms and dads just like you and I. And so that can be replicated. If you don't find a chapter in your area, that can be replicated where you're at. I don't want you to feel like you don't have the powerful voice to be able to bring forth change, because you do. And it happens one child at a time, one parent at a time, one family at a time, one community at a time. And so you do have a powerful voice, just like we use ours, right? And so I'm so grateful that you guys are advocating on behalf of changes, systematic changes, systemic changes, right, for children, so that they don't have to wait until way down the line and we find out, well, they still can't read. And then now they're traumatized by the emotions, frustration, lack of self-worth, you know?
You know what happens so often, it happens so frequently, and it's just terrible, is that kids, you know, they become behavior problems, and then they don't get referred to for special ed until, you know, they're in middle school, and people overlook the reading thing. When if their foundational reading ability had been addressed when they were in second grade, first grade, you know, things would not be, they wouldn't be on that path. So it's really a huge problem that we want to address. And yeah, it's parents. In addition to our websites, of course, there are regional groups across the state. And so we have parents who get together just for a support group because they're not alone. There are too many kids who aren't getting what they need, and we want to support them.
Right. And so, you know, I appreciate the fact that your son is now where he needs to be. And so that deficit has been worked on, right? And so bad that he had to suffer those couple of years. But now he's doing great. And that's an amazing testimony to the advocacy that you do. And so how do people contact you for the literacy tutor portion? I saw that you are a literacy tutor. And so talk about that.
So as I mentioned, so the type of instruction that is really important for kids with dyslexia is called structured literacy. And so I have specialized training in the Slingerland method, which is a structured literacy method. And so I do private tutoring. But I mean, I wish I was providing that in public school setting, but I'm not at this time. But you can email me.
But you should be. You should be able to. I mean, you know, I always say and I've had this conversation with decision makers, if you guys cannot provide what is necessary, allow someone else to be contracted to come and do it, right? Because the kids are suffering, and if what you're doing isn't trickling down to the students to make an impact and a change, then we need to rethink this. And how do we form partnerships and coalition building and collaborate, really collaborate, right?
And I want to give a shout out. School districts are trying at this point. Like, I mean, my local school district is putting a lot of effort in making sure teachers are trained at the special ed level, and that is critical. Those are the kids who are most vulnerable, absolutely. But we can do better in the early grades so that children don't end up in special education. There's no reason why we have to wait for them to fail and traumatize them every day. They go to school and they can't do what they're being told, and no one knows how to help them. If we can get it addressed when they're early.
Right. So before we close, can you give the parents, first of all, information on how to contact you and a hopeful thought, right? I don't want to leave everything like it's all bad. You know, there's hope here. Mm-hmm. The fact that we're even talking about this level of advocacy and the ability to advocate on behalf of early intervention for dyslexia, that means that there's hope. And so if you could just give the parents a final thought and your contact information.
Okay, yeah, there absolutely is hope. Thank you for pointing that out there. I think that it is amazing how connected people are now. So, and knowledge is power, right? We know so much about dyslexia. Now we can see the differences in the brain. So it is brain-based. It is about how people's brains are organized, and we know the root cause of dyslexia. There's expertise, the information is there. It is not an information gap, it is an action gap. And so with power of families advocating for the needs of their kids and the expertise and information we have, we can definitely change things.
Thank you so much, Megan. I appreciate all the information and wisdom that you shared. And so parents, you heard it from Megan Potente, and you've heard it from me. We do this here at National Parents Union, helping you to support every single child's modality of learning so that they thrive and not just barely survive. You have been watching Managing Day to Day with me, Christina Lasser, and National Parents Union. We love you, America's beautiful children. We hope that you're all well. We hope that you're thriving, and we'll see you again tomorrow. Same place, same time. Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Perfect. All set.
Okay, we're good?
Yep, we're off live.
And
thank you.
Thank you. If you want to put my email in the